We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young. And today we're going to another country. That's right. We're going to connect with a gentleman that I met at CanX 2019. And it was an amazing experience being in Jamaica because I ran into some of the most impressive people you'll ever want to meet in the cannabis industry. I mean, Doug Gordon runs it down there. But you know what? Bruce Linton was there. Steve D'Angelo was there. And so was Captain Hooter. Hello, Captain Hooter. How are you?
Outstanding, sir. How are you today? Reporting for duty.
That's right. And you, sir, you're in Jamaica now, aren't you?
I am in Jamaica now. I escaped out of the Netherlands about a month ago, just under a month ago. And I had 2 weeks of being in quarantine here. And I've had about a week and a half now out in the wilderness, out and exploring. And I'm thrilled that I made the escape.
Well, you know what? I'm extremely jealous because as I look outside your window, I see palm trees. And as I look outside my window, I see 1.5 feet of snow. Okay. It's been cold and wintry here in the greater Boston area, but I'm glad that you're bringing a little warmth on a cold winter day to me and the people that follow the In the Weeds podcast. So again, thanks so much. Now, tell the people, you wrote a book years ago, if I remember correctly, about the reviews of the Amsterdam coffee houses. Is that accurate?
Yeah, what it was to do a quick story. My father passed away. I came back to Amsterdam. I was looking for a new project, for something to do. My friend from Toronto called me and he says, I'm coming, and he says, I'm going to have a visit with you. What's the best coffee shop? And he knew that over the previous 30 years, I had been coming back and forth to Amsterdam for the traditional High Times Cannabis cups. And my first one, I think, was in 1995. And so I had a chance to meet, Jack Herrera himself, Steve Herrera. Do you remember the guy that used to, Chef Ra, I think was his name, and he used to cook. He was the cooking editor, and he was. We got to meet all those guys, met all the owners of all the coffee shops, and had been coming back for years and years. So he asked me, "What's the best coffee shop?" And I told him off the cuff that I didn't know because I hadn't been to all of them. And there was a silence on the line, and he says, "Dude, has anybody ever done it before?" And we Googled it, checked it out. No one person had ever been to all the coffee shops in Amsterdam. And immediately, boom, this was a job for Captain Hooter. And that was literally the creation of Captain Hooter. I laid out a schedule. I figured out how many coffee shops I would have to go to every single day to also maintain the law, because you can only legally have 5 grams a day when you're out purchasing it. So I didn't want to break any rules because I was going to be documenting it all. I don't want to bust myself for doing something that was against the law. So I followed all the rules. I started the process. There was 169 coffee shops. So I started off, I went about a week into the process, a week and a half, and I almost stopped the project because I was running into cultivar after cultivar after cultivar that said it was one thing, but my nose and my experience and, I knew just enough to know that wasn't right, and there were some things I knew just like the back of my hand, like Snoop Dogg's Cali Kush, right? I know Snoop Dogg's Cali Kush, with my eyes closed. And I ran into one of the coffee shops that was selling Snoop Dogg's Cali Kush, and I walked in there and I just couldn't even believe what I saw. And I told that coffee shop owner, I said, you better not ever let Snoop Dogg find out that you sold this garbage and put his name on this thing right here. This is horrific. And he comes here. I said, he comes here, dude. You do not want to be pick another name. Call it Madonna or pick out some star from the 80s and, name it after them. Don't name it after Snoop Dogg. So, I started to think, though, that maybe I didn't have the skills to really do this job justice the way I thought I did. And I literally ended up connecting with Max Montrose. I think you know Max Montrose from the Trichome Institute.
I know of, yes, I do actually. I know of him anyway. Yeah.
Dude is absolutely brilliant. I call him the Yoda of cannabis. He knows, like, it's such a beautiful encyclopedia on every single element of this plant. And he immediately identified what my issue was. I needed to up my skills. So that's when I went into a crash master's course on his interpreting course. Immediately started incorporating all of those things that I learned from his class. And I got in touch with my son-in-law, who is a sommelier, and he was giving me insights as to, the way that a real true sommelier does this is after breakfast and before lunch. And then there might be another period that'll be before dinner, and where your taste buds will be at their premium, and you'll be able to consume more, right? So I just started incorporating all of this great information and put my head down, and I went to all 169 shops. And then out of those 169 shops, first of all, let me just say that what I did is I really tried to evaluate all the shops the same way that they did the Michelin restaurants. They all went in, they do the exact same things, say the exact same words in every single shop. And I evaluated on 5 primary things, which were the quality and the variety of cultivars that they had available, the overall cleanliness of the coffee shop, which is really, really important. And this was even back then. We're not even talking about now, right?
Right.
The cannabis knowledge of the bud tenders, and I would usually have a question that I would ask them that was, a general question about whether I had anxiety or I had depression issues. What would they recommend? Just to kind of see what their knowledge was. And then the overall hospitality and the friendliness to the customers. And that was a big deal in the first book that I did, especially during that time frame. For whatever reason, the coffee shops were not super friendly. They were dishing out buds like they were hamburgers. And I actually did a master's class for their cannabis celebration, and I told them that, I said, you're handling the bud inappropriately with your naked fingers like this, and the attitudes, no smiles. Anyway, the last thing I rated on was also the convenience of the location and how close they were to good locations. I finished all 169, and then I went and I picked out 20 of the best that were there. And then I paired them with the best restaurants that were close by those coffee shops, because, when you're arriving. And then I broke it down on how you're going to arrive. So if you arrive by airplane, it's early in the morning. You're going to take a train into the center of town, then Prix de Mi would be your best place. They open at 7 o'clock. They got great breakfast. And I just paired it by basically the convenience of how a tourist might arrive coming into Amsterdam.
Got it. And now you said there's a second book in the works?
Right. Well, it was a second book, and I turned it into an article instead. In the beginning of last year, before the pandemic started to lock anything down, I started working on the follow-up book, which was the top 20 coffee shops for 2020. And I did the exact same process, but instead of testing all 169, I took the 20 that were the winners last time. And then I took the other 25 that were the ones that came closest to winning last time, but missed for one thing or for another reason. So I threw them all into a bin, shook it all up, retested all of them, completely random again, and then picked a brand new top 20 for 2020. I had the book pretty much done by June, but there were 2 new coffee shops that were getting ready to open. And of course, everything was now locked down as of March, and they didn't open, so you can't walk in you can only take to-go orders instead of going. So I really didn't get a chance to finish the last element. And then one last coffee shop opened in September where you could see it because it's mostly a to-go place anyway, and it ended up being one of the winners for this year. And so I was delighted and waited till then. But then I decided, who wants to buy a book right now? Nobody's traveling right this moment. This is something that I worked on. Let me give it away as some entertainment. So my good friends over at Cannabis Culture Magazine are publishing it here, I think, any day now. So it's about to come out and come live. And I'm very excited.
Well, you're an excitable guy anyway, Captain Hooter. I can tell, it's one of the things that's always I've always liked about you as a personality. Needless to say, 2020 has been a challenging year for everybody that has been affected by this pandemic. You certainly seem to be healthy. You've done your quarantining. As you look back at this year, can you come up with 3 to 5 of the biggest stories in 2020? There's been so much movement on a positive direction for cannabis advocacy. What would be your top 5 stories of 2020 in the cannabis world?
Right off the bat, I want to talk about the Forgotten Prisoner project. You know, the one with Steve D'Angelo.
Last
I mean,
prisoner, the last prisoner project.
Sorry, last prisoner, dude. I mean, I think the progress that they have made this year, and the connections and the way that they have really got their roots out to people better. I've been so impressed with them. I'm actually working right now. You know, they have the program going on for the prisoners where you can write a letter to them right now while they're in prison, which is, I thought was one of the greatest ideas ever. I'm working on 5 separate letters that I'm handwriting to prisoners for the holidays here. And I think that was one of the, the coolest things ever. Obviously, legally, there's been lots of progress. And when I say progress, I say asterisk, still, we have no idea what's going to happen here. There's still shenanigans afoot with the election. I've been telling people here in the Netherlands for the last 4 years, whenever they ask me about Trump and ask me about the whole thing, I'm going, there's a reason for everything. And I think that the positive thing that's going to come out of this is that everyone's going to be so shocked and upset and disappointed by the time it's all over that we're going to have this really strong wave that's going to come in the other direction. And hopefully it's going to be a strong enough wave that it's going to start this really heavy domino effect. And I don't know if that's still what's going to happen. I'm still hoping that that's the way this is going to roll. Things are progressing everywhere. Today I read a story about Belgium. Belgium might be legalizing soon. In the Netherlands, they've got a lot of challenges. They've got a lot of things that they're doing that are interesting. And I was actually at the end of when I was going around Europe, I was getting a little more excited about heading into Barcelona sometimes because the freedoms that they have there, that the growers have there, where they're legal to grow there, and for the most part, and are able to get a higher quality product to the shops in the appropriate grow times, as opposed to what you see in the Netherlands a lot, which is a lot of please don't let me make it sound like I'm being a negative towards the buds in Amsterdam, because there are some amazing, incredible cultivators there, and I have really been impressed with, especially in the last year, some of the progress. But they're all still working with their hands behind their back. It's still illegal to be a grower. And they just started this new experiment, and they picked, I think, 10 or 20 people who got licenses to be part of it. And I'm crossing my fingers. It's another government cannabis project. What could go wrong, right?
A lot of things. A lot of things. So what I'm hearing is the 5 states that voted for adult use legalization of cannabis in the United States at the election time on the ballots. To me, that has to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest story. The fact that the U.S. House of Representatives voted positively on the MORE Act, which, in theory, if you're just dealing with the House of Representatives, wants cannabis to be legalized, opening up the banks, expunging the records. It was a lot of progress. It went absolutely nowhere in the Senate. However, there is certainly some movement in the Senate, because all of a sudden the Senate now has approved the research bill that was handed to them last week about doing more research on cannabis. So there's more movement afoot in the United States towards legalization now than there's ever been before.
And it has to be in the Senate. It has to be in the Senate now, is where we have to, because we can spin around in the House all day long. And we have to make some progress. It's the reason why these Georgia elections are so important.
Right. Oh, no. In fact, how Georgia goes is going to be how the Senate goes. And, all eyes are on that. And I think the runoff is January 6th down there. So we're going to know certainly by Inauguration Day for the new president-elect Joe Biden, January 20th, just which direction the Senate is going to be. And wouldn't it be ironic that it does come down to an even split, and the vice president-elect Kamala Harris will be deciding whether legalization or pro-cannabis legislation moves forward. That would be a huge step, right?
Isn't that ironic, right?
Right. No, very much ironic. Hey, do you think you're going to see the day? And again, who knows? There's a couple of social clubs in California now. Massachusetts did vote that in, but that has gone absolutely nowhere since the voters said we want social clubs in Massachusetts. How long? 5 years, 10 years? Will you live to see the day when we'll have cannabis social clubs in the United States?
Well, there is one already in Los Angeles, and
right.
I've been there, and I have to say that it was, if I wanted to stretch it and compare it to like any of the other places, like the hemp houses in Jamaica here, or any of the cannabis clubs or the associations in Spain, or the coffee shops in Amsterdam, that was a really beautiful coffee shop. It immediately would have went into the top 3. If I were to say just walking in, and that's the Lowell Cafe, right? The one that's in Hollywood. The overall experience and the way that they put it together, and I thought it was very expensive. In fact, I spent the most amount of money on an eighth that I ever spent in my entire life there at that cafe. But there's a famous old quote that I use all the time. Says, "The pain of poor quality endures far longer than the sweetness of good price." So even though this was $100 an eighth, and the most I had ever spent on an eighth, I said, I'm going for it. It turned out that the cultivator was somebody called a Golden State. I don't know if you ever heard of him before. They call him the Maybach of marijuana in Hollywood. And let me just tell you, talk about going down the rabbit hole. That was, during my whole time that I was in California and Las Vegas, that was probably in the number 1 or number 2 spot of the best cultivar that I tasted the whole time I was back in the United States. Wow. And I tracked them down after trying that $100 eighth. Everywhere else, by the way, it's 70 an eighth. It's just that they add the percentage on there like wine would happen in a restaurant. That's what they do there. So you pay a percentage to the house in order to do it. And they bring you a beautiful tray with a bong and papers and pipes and all the accessories you could ever want to have, grinders and everything with your eighths. So it was pretty cool.
It does sound pretty cool. And of course, was this pre-COVID or not?
This was in December. So to finish answering your question, though, I think it's very soon. And again, it's all has to do with this next drop. Whichever happens here, wherever we go, as soon as we get to a point where things are legalized, and then we can start moving in that direction where people can start innovating, I think it's just, Trichome Institute is just getting ready to open a new class on culinary, and it's tied in with one of the culinary institutes. Legitimate industry are coming in, and they're coming in at a pretty quick rate. And I think that it's just a matter of time before, and the one place that it isn't going to change is in Las Vegas, like in the casinos, right? Because we know that gambling and cannabis don't really go together well. Alcohol and gambling go together beautifully, but cannabis, and so those things still don't gel, and I don't expect to see any kind of the casinos doing anything. But I do think that you're going to start seeing resorts. Like there's one here in Jamaica that just opened up its own hemp house. What's the name of it? Hedonism 2. And they have their own hemp house on location with their own bud tender. One old guy there to hook you up on property, on site. So I think that's just a matter of time, especially here in Jamaica, especially as more education is going out. I'm hearing a lot more people here in Jamaica now, older people talking about CBD and CBN, and not much more than that. The rest of it, but they've got the CBD and CBN, and start taking oils and tinctures and things of that nature. So I think progress is on its way. And again, I think the legalization part of it is the thing that's going to trip the whole thing, and then it just goes around the world.
Yeah, I mean, Mexico seems to get closer and closer to legalization. It seems like they take 2 steps forward and then 1 or 2 steps backward, and they still haven't quite figured out how it's going to work yet. You know, you have Mexico in the south, you got Canada in the north, you got the United States in the middle. At some point, North America is all going to be legalized, or at least decriminalized. And in Jamaica itself, are you finding that the indigenous people down there and the Rastafarians, are they finally getting their just due? Are they getting access to perhaps being more capitalistic in nature down there? Because I remember they were fighting it in September of 2019 when we were down there together.
So I've only been here a month, and I'm talking to a lot of Rastas. I'm talking to a lot of people, and you know, it's a real interesting scenario, because you have, you know, a few big companies, outside investors and such, who have come in and they've opened up legalized hemp houses, right? Outside of those hemp houses, there's still local Rastas that are out there trying to sell, or even not Rastas, but just locals that are trying to sell locally grown, you know, out in the woods, buds. It's an interesting contrast, because like when I remember coming to Jamaica the first times, I would go and give some guy $20 and he would come back with a shopping bag, and you'd pull this thing out, and this thing have 3 stocks on it. You'd have colas on it like this, and you would think, oh my God, I hit the lottery. Look at this. This is the most amazing score ever for $20, right? And then you would scrape it off with your hand, and there would be 10,000 seeds. 10,000 seeds, and you'd go, oh, okay, well, now I understand the thing. You'd scrape the seeds out, and you would smoke up what that was, and it was really, really, really good. It was excellent sativa. And you know, one of the things I'm noticing now is that, you know, in the legalized houses, you're getting a higher quality of cannabis, but it's also a more processed kind of a bud. Right? I haven't seen a seed on anything. The buds have all been tight and everything. But there was something about those buds that, you know, had never been touched by a human being, right? They're still like virgin buds. And you're getting this premium, you know, uncirculated bud. And even though the seeds are in there, you're still getting this really spectacular. I still have a place in my heart for those buds, you know, and I'm getting really great high quality buds since I've been here. I've been to 5 different hemp houses so far since I've been let free. I've been very impressed with everyone. They're all doing a professional job. There's lots of great options. The place you went, did you go to Island Strains? I remember that one of the nights.
Was there a party there? Yeah. There was one place.
On the hip strip.
I know we went to Kaya. That much I remember.
Okay. Well, there was the other one I think is Island Strains, which is right on the hip strip there, and it's right next to the Margaritaville.
I think that's where we were. Look, there was one night that I'll admit I kind of remember it. You know, but it was the whole place, it was the whole time we were down there, it was so laid back, and yet you had great access to some amazing speakers. But, you know, I can't compare it with any other convention, to be honest, because of the fact that everybody was just hanging out, talking to each other. It wasn't like there was a lot of planned activities, if you catch my drift, right?
And we had access to everyone. I mean, I sat and talked to Bruce Linton for 15 minutes after his roundtable thing. You were talking to, I mean, everybody, to be able to speak to Steve D'Angelo, you know, was also truly an honor, right? It was a really wonderful experience. The Jack Herrera Cup also was great. That's where I got a chance to meet Bali, I believe is the owner of the Kaya coffee shops, and they won awards. I believe they won a couple of awards during the event. So yeah, it was spectacular. To get back to finish your answer though about the coffee shops in the United States, I'm gonna say 1 year from the time that everybody's legitimately in place. I think that the economic pressure is going to be really strong in all these countries. You're going to have to do something to get these people employed and give them opportunities to make money. And I think legalization is going to be one of the easy answers, actually, the easy answer to make, because then people can go to work right now, and there's a workforce in place and a distribution system pretty much ready to go around the world. And you've got Luxembourg and Switzerland, which are a bit ready to flip. And that'll take another section of the world. It'll be down to like China, North Korea, and Russia. Oh, North Korea has buds. So China and Russia will be the only places you can't get any weed.
There you go. Well, that's all right, because they're not on my bucket list anyway. But all of Europe is. I do want to go back to something we were talking about before. And of course, you're so entertaining, I completely lose my train of thought. But I do want to ask about where are we going to be when, and do you expect the social clubs, and I know where I was going. Now I got it. And of course, it always comes back to you in a few minutes. It's like a delay. It's like a weed delay. And no, I'm straight right now. So ask the Rastas, who are one of the most spiritual people, who understand the power of this plant and understand that God put it on this earth for a reason. And now people are discovering what that reason is, the interaction with the endocannabinoid system, all the science and research around that. Do you think that God did COVID? In other words, put COVID on earth, this horrible virus that has killed way too many people, not only in the United States, but all over the world, this horrific pandemic. And now they're giving, it's an opportunity for cannabis to emerge as almost like a saving industry to regenerate the economy. Is that weird?
Yeah, it depends on which direction you want to go. If you want to jump into the Elon Musk category, where we're talking about this is all a software program and everything happens based on predisposed pre-existence of humans, and they're doing that, that's possible too. If you want to go for Jah is making it happen, I'm down with Jah. I'm down with any kind of a spiritual being that is making things happen. I think there's, one of the reasons I'm here. I don't know if you remember the last time when we were here, but do you remember Jonathan Hirsch?
I know the name, yeah.
Okay, so Weedstagram 416. He is a cannabis professor. He's one of the best growers I've ever seen. He's brilliant. He's an expert at concentrates. Talking to him and listening to him is like listening to an encyclopedia of weed also. And when he and I left some of the sessions at CanX last year, we went outside and there was a group of Rastas that were growers, and one of the guys brought out his bud, and I always carry my microscope with me, and I always have a black light with me, and I always have, so I said, oh, let's see what you got, pull it up. And the first thing I did is hit it with a black light, and it had mildew all across the back of the bud. Whoa. And I went, oh, well, do you see this? And he went, what's that? And Jonathan explained to him, this is what's going on. This is how you could fix this. This is it. Then, and the next guy came, and he started with this really long sales pitch with it. Oh yeah, we come from 5 different generations, and we'll pass this down, this land race. And I work from morning to night. And I told him at one point, I said, okay, no more. I pulled out my microscope, my big one, and I said, this is the truth. And I went through Amsterdam and heard every story and everything. I stopped listening to what you tell me. I'm going to let the flower talk to me. And I pull it up, and then I can look. And then, that's really what interpreting is being able to ascertain the quality of a bud and what kind of effects it's going to have on you. And I'm checking for things that labs don't check for. I'm looking for bugs. I'm looking for how old this is. I'm using my aroma techniques in order to develop an idea of how strong this is, how long it's been, if it was cured properly, all these different things, right? And so I said, this is the truth. The next day when Jonathan and I came out, there was 20 Rastas out there with their buds. And they called us and, Captain, show me the truth. Show me the truth, Captain. So I love Rastas. I love the Jamaican people, and I love teaching. And I've been kind of giving them tips, and there's a lot of room for improvement here on a lot of different things. Some of these growers have hybridized everything to death. They know what they're doing. They're experts at what they're doing. They're limited in their resources.
Right.
When you get to the curing portion of the process, as Jonathan was talking to me about last night, you can't take the buds and lay them down on a tin roof and dry them, right? And so there's limitations of things here because they don't have the right facilities to be able to do it properly.
Yeah.
And
which is
so
too bad because, there's money going into investing into the Jamaican market. You would hope that perhaps some of the investors or those bigger companies would come in and modernize the whole process.
The truth is that it's a poor country, and there's it's hard to get things done. It's a slow place. It's unbelievably beautiful country. And the people are just pure as gold. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to come back here. Leaving the Netherlands, where 40% of the people over 50 years old, or 40 years old, I should say, didn't believe that the coronavirus was real. They thought it was something else, or there was I've heard 30 different stories about what they thought it was, and people weren't wearing masks. And in the place where we lived, we had a unique position where we could look down and this big walkway where you saw people every single day. And we were isolating, basically from the time that we returned back. So I did, as soon as I finished my book and they started to lock down, we were done. And then we never left except to go to a store. But we watched out the window, and again, 40 to 50% of the people weren't wearing masks. And even after they instituted stronger measures, they weren't wearing masks. And even when they, old people, young people hanging out together, it was like we kept watching bus crashes over and over and over again. And we finally said, we got to get out of here. This place is not going to make it. And we had lived here in Jamaica before. And of course, we found out how beautifully Jamaica is handling this virus. They track you as soon as you arrive. You have to pre-approve, get approved by the government to come in after you show that you've had your positive or your negative test. Then as soon as negative test. And then as soon as you arrive, your phone, you have to set to location so that they can track you. And then they make you check in twice a day, and you have to show your temperature. And if you're in a resort, you can move about the whole resort. If you're in a house like what we are, you had to stay right in that place. And then, so we pre-stocked our house ahead of time. I had everything, so I didn't have to leave the house for 2 weeks. And it worked out just fine. It was the best quarantine I ever had in my life, laying in a pool at 80 degrees every day.
I'm so
brutal.
jealous. I'm so jealous. Hey,
sorry.
One thing I've learned, I talk to a lot of interesting people seems to be every day now, because we're doing 3 days a week of live cannabis talk and cannabis chat and interviews. Is the fact that there's a seed market that is, while it's not legal, it's legal, and it's not decriminalized, but it's not. Can you enlighten me a little bit about the genetics world, the world of seeds, and how you can go on the internet and buy seeds from anywhere all over the world?
They're different, obviously different in every country. Here, I have not explored the seed market. I haven't seen them available, and I haven't really had a discussion about it. Obviously, seeds are plentiful here because of the nature of the island itself, and that with its width and length and everything, and there's hemp farms on here, so you've got that pollen that's in the air. So unless you're in a greenhouse and using the proper filters, you're going to have some issues. And even if you're using a feminized seed, as Jonathan was telling me again last night, they're only 99% guaranteed. So 1 out of 100 is going to be a male. So if you just go out and plant your seeds and you don't really monitor it too well, that's kind of what you end up with. And there's that kind of happening here in different spots. as far as in Amsterdam, that's a completely different thing. It's like the diamond market for seeds there in Amsterdam. And you also have the London seed market, which is also, I think, something that people don't talk about enough. The London seed market has some really exclusive cultivators utilizing that. I know that the people in GG Strains, the original people who created Gorilla Glue, was selling some of their seeds through that market as well.
There was that was a lawsuit, so you can't mention Gorilla Glue anymore. Am I right? It's just GG
Strains. Yeah.
Right.
And we lost those two legends, Josie Wales and Lone Waddy, that created that cultivar, which is sad. But GG is still going strong, as I understand it, and kicking butt. They got some new stuff coming out.
Of course they do. Hey, Captain Hooter, I always enjoy hanging out with you, talking with you. I learned so much. First of all, we know it's CaptainHooter.com, and you want to give yourself another plug and how people can find you, if you want to be found, of course.
You can always find me. I'm on Instagram, Captain Hooter on Instagram. I'm Captain Hooter on Twitter. On YouTube, it's youtube.com/Captain Hooter, and you can see some of my reviews, my weekend bud reports that I did for people coming to Amsterdam. And I've just started working on my new book here, which will be a connoisseur's guide to the Jamaican hemp houses. And I'm also working on a new podcast. It's going to be a little wake and bake show at the beginning of the year. So Captain Hooter's going to be busy, baby. We're going to be moving.
Well, we hope to get an opportunity to talk to you again when you launch your podcast, and perhaps even re-air it here if you would like. But we'll talk more about that offline, as they say. I got to tell you though, please enjoy yourself in Jamaica. I'll be thinking of you basking by the pool and checking out those palm trees and looking at the beautiful ocean out there. It will help me through the shoveling process that we have to deal with in New England. So again,
you're more than welcome to live through me vicariously. And if you want, I'll send you a picture once a day with me out in the pool, with a cold drink. Ice has already melted because it's so warm out.
I love it. I love it. And it's great reconnecting with you, sir. And I look forward to continuing this friendship. So for Captain Hooter, I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
We Talk Now, We Talk News, and In the Weeds are all available on most major podcast distributors like iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and our friends at clnsmedia.com and our flagship, Cannabis.net. So subscribe, share, and like our videos on all the social media networks out there, including LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the WeedTube, and YouTube. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge, and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.